In the late 60s and the early 70s, a good thing happened. People with serious mental illness at the time were often kept and had to stay in state psychiatric hospitals, really doomed for a lifetime in many ways because we didn't have good treatment. Then the medication started getting better, treatment started getting better. And so as people started getting better, they created a whole, patient's right movement, a peer recovery or a peer specialist movement, a recovery movement to say, I don't need to stay in the hospital anymore. I need to be in the community, right? So people started coming out into the community. But the problem was we didn't have a community mental health system to treat people. And so you saw this explosion start to happen on the street of people who had serious mental illness, who had been staying in the hospital, come back out. The families weren't getting education on how to support their family member with mental illness. We didn't have a housing system for people with mental illness, and we didn't have community clinics the way we do today.
Homelessness, the biggest problem is mental illness and drug addiction in downtown LA. So there are a lot of services, there are a lot of programs that offer housing and treatments for both mental illness and drug addiction. Those services cannot be forced on people. It has to be their choice. So it's a slow process of trying to find and connect to the patient population and to build the trust between the providers and the patients.
I know there's a team of professionals in Los Angeles here, and you see them around downtown mostly. They have purple shirts on and they're usually on bicycles. And they're the people who can be called if there's an issue somewhere with a homeless person who seems like they are suffering from some kind of mental health problem. And the point of them is that they're trained to deal with that sort of thing peacefully, so you call them instead of calling the police.
One of the things that happened recently, last year, I believe it was in March, is the Supreme Court ruled on that homeless people are not necessarily entitled to the Eighth Amendment. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, the Eighth Amendment is basically one of the amendments that is like habeas corpus, and is saying the punishment has to meet the crime. One of the things I worry about today is now that this homeless crisis is here and it's not going anywhere, and of course no one wants to live around homelessness. It brings back diseases, it's unsanitary, it's scary, and so that people might go for solutions under the duress of the crisis that they wouldn't normally go for, like such as removing them and putting them in camps. So that's really where I think we're pretty far along in the homeless crisis, and I'm really worried about, as a country, with the Olympics coming to Los Angeles specifically, that they might be moved to jails, they might be moved into like centers, and so I really worry about how the legal system is going to be used towards these people.
I do think that that's something that we don't solve by grabbing them and saying, okay, you're mentally ill, you're addicted, now you get treatment.
So it's really important that we treat them as humans, and with every step we take, we ask what they need.
If we define homelessness as something that not only affects our neighbors, our friends, but could affect us, if we think about the fact that we're 1 or 2 paychecks away from homelessness, I feel like we need programs in our communities that are set up to help people who do face hard times.
In many, many states and in many, many communities, people don't have access to health insurance. So even if they want to have mental health treatment, they don't have a way to pay for it, right? So that's a big problem.
When you want to put somebody in a hospital, let's say somebody has a psychotic episode, you have to prove their danger to themselves or to others. These are 2 main things when you assess somebody for psychiatric illness. Okay, if they are not safe, if they are not danger to themselves or others, nobody's going to take them to the hospital. And if they do get taken, they usually are taken only what they call it 5150. It's only for 72 hours. Okay, they can hold them only for 72 hours. And after that, it has to be their own agreement to stay if they need more treatment, and they get then when they get discharged, if they stabilize on psychiatric medications, they get discharged into, if they don't have housing, they were brought to the shelter, to the door of the shelter. They are dropped off at the door of the shelter. It all starts over and over again.
If severe mental illness is causing someone to be unsheltered and a danger to themselves, we have a moral obligation to help them get the treatment and care they need.
Housing plus services, not housing only.